right. Welcome to another episode of the Dot Files. I'm going to get some stuff going, and then we're going to work on some dev container stuff. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go with this window. All right. So one thing I'd like to do, I've had a lot of trouble with understanding what owns what in dev container. And so to be very clear, what that means is a lot of things seem to run as root. Some things seem to run as the dev container user, and it's completely unclear to me what that is. So let's go look at a dev container that I've got. So this is a dev container that I've been working on. And so all it does is it installs SBT, which is a tool that you use to compile Scala. And I was doing this for a customer, and I noticed that this just acted very oddly to me. So let's go ahead and launch this in Daytona, and let's start figuring out a little bit more about what's actually happening inside of Daytona when this launches, or inside of dev container. So it's not just Daytona. This happens in all dev containers. So if we go to the container spec, and we go look at features, not features. I want to look at actually the dev container. We're going to go back. It is partly about speech features, but I actually want to it's actually, in my mind, it's also about these commands. So let's see. So the initialize command, the on create, it subsequently executes inside the container immediately after it started for the first time. So the question I have is, after it's created for the first time, my guess is the features haven't been applied yet, but this will take a second to build because it's, let's see, it's grabbing Java, it's grabbing a bunch of other stuff. So that'll take a moment. But what I saw was when you used post start, that it is SPT is not available, but after the container starts and after I attach to it, SPT is in the path. And so my question is, who do these scripts run as? I think most of them run as root, but I think it feels like some of these later ones actually run as the user, whatever user just happens to be in the box. So let's just sort of peel back the onion on dev container a little bit and see what happens. All right. Well, that'll be ready in a moment. Let's also go let's go read. So the one that I was having a hard time with is post command or post start command. So if we go say dev container post start command, we go look at the docs. All right, so here's some good docs for this. Let me make it bigger so it's easier for y'all to read. So you can also put it into the background, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm sure it's It's often used for this kind of thing. My question though is, who does it run as? Now this is for when you do local. Yeah, I would just really love to understand. Let's go back. And we're going to say, instead of examples, I don't even know, dev container, what user runs? I don't think this will work. Yeah, I have no idea. Does not change the container runs as, which can be set as container user, which is different than the remote user. Yeah, this is where I think this is tough. Like, there's a remote user, there's a container user. Is that root? Is that not root? Okay, let's see if this is up. It is. All right. So if we go, we're going to go to logs. There it is. So it runs the post start command and it says permission denied. Permission denied is different than why does it say permission denied? That's really odd. So if we get a terminal and we do this, so it's because of the shell. It's because it's happening in a shell, bin shell, and bin shell doesn't have so my guess is if I did this and did bash, but if I type SBT, oh, it's now I don't find it. Oh, well, I think that's because if I take this out and I save this and rebuild this container. This is my favorite feature about dev container, is that you can just make a change and rebuild it, and then you get you basically get your repo back at the place that you left it, and you don't have to start and stop and create another one, which is a real pain. All right, come on, let's go. So if you're watching, welcome. Thanks for joining. Let me know if your music's too loud. I think last time the music was too loud, but if it's a good volume, it would be helpful to know. Having a slow demo day. So my guess is I'm going to get SPT this time. And it's going to work. Oh, no, it still doesn't. Interesting. That's very odd to me that that's not working. So if I source it, so there it goes. All right. So I think this is one of the hard things about dev container right now. It's really difficult to understand who the user is at any one time. And I should just help draw these pictures. Who's the user? And then also, how do you correctly get things like the init script for SDKman into the right place at the right time so that you understand when are the features installed? When do these things happen? Who's running it? What shell are they using to run it so that I understand what may or may not be getting sourced? I think we should just go figure that out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, and instead of doing post command, we're going to do we're going to create a script. So new file. We're going to call it learn more. So I'm not going to put a bit on top, or do I need to? I want to run. Well, let's just start with this. We're going to do who am I, and we're going to put this into I want to put it in somewhere specific. So I'm going to do it into I'm going to do it into temp, I guess. We're going to do temp This is where people will learn that I'm super not good at the magic of IDEs. So we're going to say post create command post attach. What else can we do? Let's see, post create, post attach. So we've got on create, update content, post create, post start, post attach. Okay. All right, let's do this. Looks like I have more than one post start. All right. So post start, post create, post attach, on create, and that should go there. And we'll just see who am I. I'm going to rebuild. Hey, Ben. Thanks. Are you going to learn some who's running what? Where are we going? Back to Daytona. Oh, so we definitely see these. There's post start. So there's the on create, update content, post create, post start. Let's see what the results are. I'm sure it's documented somewhere. I just don't know where to find it. And so it's probably good feedback of like, hey, we should help people find it. I think it is hard though. It's hard to, because there are so many different users. There's some scripts that run as root. Then there's also ways to change it, right? So the one that blows my mind of how would you support this is, so let's go look at a feature real quick while that's starting. This is a feature that is very common. It's literally called the common utilities. Lots of people use it, but it does some amazing things that are, would blow my mind for like, how do you know all of this and how do you support this as a feature writer? So change your shell to Zeesh, change the username. So I know that lots of this is going to happen as the feature gets built in. You can adjust for some of this, but like as a feature writer, how do you support Alpine versus Ubuntu? How do you support Bash versus Zeesh? How do you support arbitrary random usernames? And then when people specify nothing and things run as root, like I think that we probably should write some best practices around features, and I know that there's some good examples of this in the community. So we've talked about this before on this, but there is a there's a dev container sort of contrib place that has just a literal ton of features that have been implemented. And so I'm sure this is probably the closest thing there is to sort of a community best practice, and in this I like it. But it gets really intense, and I'll show you a good example. So let's go to the SBT. This is actually where the feature I'm using comes from. So here's the install script where they use this nano layer, which is a tool that helps you install either other features or app packages or whatnot. So this feature calls out and then installs 3 other features, 4 other features. So it goes and gets the SDK man feature, but not at any particular version. It just grabs it. Then it runs that again, and it uses a bash command feature, which it uses to basically edit the SDK man config. Then it installs another feature to get Java at a specific distro, and then it uses the SDK man feature again to actually install SBT. So I think this is great. It's very readable, but is that the best practice? The features install features and then how do you, like, it just seems like we're in this world where there's a lot of complexity and we don't know necessarily what the right way to do things are. Let's see if this is back done. Should be. All right. So let's go see what happened over in Templand. So hopefully this worked. There we go. So all of these are running as VS Code, which is not what I would have expected. So though they all run as the user. But that means that so if I go look in my shell, so I don't have anything in SBT, and I know that SBT puts things into etc bash rc, which I'm guessing the expectation is, because this is right down here. This is, so I think this is sort of a wasted command. I don't think this actually goes anywhere, which we probably should look into as like filing a ticket upstream. But that's not what I would have expected. So if I do this again, oops. Interesting. Where did my rebuild go? Interesting. My rebuild disappeared. That was weird. Well, how am I gonna do this now? Let's go here. We're gonna go to the Daytona. Interesting. Would not. Just go ahead and start this workspace back. There we go. So I'm gonna guess. Yeah, I can see post start, but oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Interesting. There you go. one nice thing is that dev container also caches previous. So you can rebuild without using the cache, or you can rebuild using the cache. So rebuilding using the cache is super fast, which is nice. So I'll have to write. I've been meaning to write a blog post about the start of dev container. So this might be a good blog post to start, like who runs what as who and with what shell. Because I mean, it's pretty common. All of the examples that I've written. So attune, which is the shell history tool, needs to get configuration into the bash RC or the Zeesh. What else? Earthly did it. SDK Man does. There's a bunch that where you need that. So let's go back to terminal. Let's do this, and we'll do text. Interesting. So is that really not a... It's not. So they're all running this shell. So if you have... So now let's do this. Why did you do that? Okay. So now we're going to go back to this, and we're going to say, instead of shell, we're going to run learn more. Real quick, before we do that, we need to get out of here, and we need to make sure that you can actually run learn more. Yeah, that's what I would expect. So now let's rebuild. So that's where it. I need to fix this, because it's these scripts will stop. If they don't find the commands, and then they'll just basically stop opening up the IDE because there was a failure. So yeah, they're all running. They're all running as bash. So we're going to learn more. And then we'll just do... It's frustrating. Frustrating. mean, I can think of a way to do this, which is that there should be a directory in like etc bashrc.d, etc.zeesh.d, and if you are a tool, you should, and that you want if you're a feature and you want the developer to use you, you should drop a file into that, which sets up completion or sets up path or whatever. The trick is when you need those things to happen in a certain order. I mean, it gets really complicated. You know, if you need, at some point, you know, you might just need, as the user, you might just need to take control of the, you know, bash rc zrc and do a bunch of that stuff yourself. You don't have to fix it for everything, but it is interesting that it's yeah, so it doesn't find it. That's a bash script. Okay, well, that's interesting. So now if we do get status. Actually, I need to fix. Cool. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go back here. So if we look at this now, we'll go launch this in code spaces and see what the difference, if there is difference. So one of the cool things about dev container is it should work in both places. It should just be easy. So it's going to go build. So that's it grabbing the JDK right there. So the install scripts run as root, but all of the user scripts run as the user. I didn't actually think that was the way it was. It's good to know. Oh, interesting. It pops post attach. Well, that's surprising. Okay. So that does work. I do get it in my path in there. But if we go look at... Oh, I didn't want that to work that way. I wanted to actually... wanted the cat... the temp text. So it did... So in here, there are... Interesting. So for file in... So on create, it doesn't work. Post attach, it does. We run post attach twice. So post create, post start, and update content, it doesn't work. But it does work in post attach. So that's surprising. Okay. What else can we test? One more thing to test. Let's test VS Code. So let me get this ready. So what I'm doing right now is just updating the repo, and I know it's not on screen, but I'll put it on screen in a second. I just need to fix a couple of things. All right, so I'm going to go. Oh, I don't save. Actually. So I don't want that. I want this. Reopen in the container, please. So this is it. Okay, now we're in the container. Are you kidding me? Is it going to do this again? There's a misunderstanding between Docker Desktop and VS Code in oh, maybe not. So sometimes you'll get this error with run Docker credential desktop git, and it'll bail out, and it's really frustrating. I don't understand what's happening right now. I guess maybe that was it. So it's up and running now. So if we go cat temp text. So it actually hasn't finished running. It's weird. So what's going on? It's annoying. So it runs that dev container secret git. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So this is a difference. This is a difference between the way that Codespaces works and the way that I think this will be a challenge where people who write features, unless there's some amount of equivalence, my guess is that Codespaces does some trick, which is the dev container feature author knows what that trick is. I don't know what that trick is. It might just be that you put stuff into bash rc and it works. But this is a good reproduction of something that doesn't work in various places, but it does work in so if I go here and now I go back to cat temp text, yeah, it doesn't work. Cool. So there is some differences in the dev and how the dev container spec gets implemented. So Daytona apparently implements it the same way that VS Code does. Dev container on Codespaces does something slightly different, and those features on this feature in specific, the SBT feature, makes an assumption about how that works for Codespaces and doesn't work for anybody else. So interesting. I'm going to report these up to the various organizations. I'll chat with folks about this, and then we'll go from there. But super interesting to understand more about who and what and where. So the commands run as if you do this and you just put something in here, it runs as bin shell, and it just executes whatever command is in here. It runs as VS Code, and so it's really up to you to figure out when and where, and how that gets into bash. So interesting. Well, thank you for joining. Next week is a week off for me. I might try to pre-record something, but I am actually on travel next week. So thanks for dropping by. I will put out some more information about when the next stream is. I think we're going into conference season. There's KubeCon and GitHub Universe coming up. So I'll be on the road a little bit, but thanks for dropping by, and I'll look forward to catching up with y'all a little bit later. Have a good week.